Welcome to Energy Stew. This is Peter Roth, and I'd like to ask you, are you ready for a new beginning? Are you ready to move forward into a better world? How? What are the factors involved right now in this crazy, chaotic, complex world that we live in to allow us to be clear on what to do next? So to help us understand this dilemma that we're in, I wanted to look at the Chinese I Ching, the gene keys, human design, for possible answers, or at least to help direct us move forward. As most of you know, I've been a human design analyst for many years, and I've also worked with the gene keys. And the gene keys are this amazing teaching from Richard Rudd, who used to be one of the leaders of human design in the United Kingdom. Then he started to receive information about the gene keys, to be empowered by them, and decided to start teaching gene keys, and got on the bad side of human design because of the politics there. So he went out on his own many, many years ago and wrote this beautiful book called Gene Keys. And he's been on Energy Stew a number of times. He's one of the most brilliant people I know. And so there's so much to learn from his teaching using the hexagrams of the Chinese I Ching. There are 64 hexagrams, and they've been equated to the 64 codons of the genetic code. And so they're basically our genes. And to know them is to understand ourselves. And the Chinese, thousands of years ago, created the I Ching in 64 parts. Each part is a hexagram of 6 horizontal lines, one on top of another, either solid line or broken line. And so mathematically, with 6 lines and the choice of each line, you can get 64 different hexagrams. And they represent the 64 different concepts of life. And that is still a very active book among not only Chinese, but many people in the world, including me. I started using it probably close to 60 years ago, and I still use it a lot. But the gene keys is a more profound look at what these hexagrams say to us about life in ways that we can interpret it more presently. So in order to understand where we're coming from in the world right now, or moving to, hopefully, I wanted to look at several of the gene keys, or a few of them anyway. I'll see how much time I have to talk about it, to understand the process of evolution that we're in, and maybe how to work with it smarter, to be more present and aware of the shadows of these hexagrams and gene keys. That it's just the same thing. A hexagram and a gene key are the same thing. So I hope you don't mind if I intersperse names, labels. So I want to start with the 41st hexagram, the 41st gene key, that has to do with creation. It has to do with the start of anything. For instance, the start of each year, I used to do a podcast because, and it would happen around the Chinese New Year, because around that time, the 41st hexagram would appear in a human design chart because of the position of the planets moving into the new year. And it would all of a sudden pop up in the chart because there are only 26 opportunities to pop up at any one time. And there are 64 hexagrams. And so they move through the cycles. And so there are cycles where the 41st is active. And so therefore, every year we would get a gander at how the year was going to look. Not just because of the 41st. The 41st is saying, okay, let's get started. And what would you like? So it's really the home of fantasy, of desire, of what do you want? What would you like? What do you feel like? What looks good to you? And it's very important because if you don't have that, you might not even ask that question. So it's necessary in our lives to think that way, to think ahead. What can I desire? What do I really want? How can I have a better life? And yet it's not more than that. It's really only an opportunity to start something, or not to even to start something, but to imagine something. So it's really using your imagination. So isn't that great? So don't we all have imaginations that know we want a better life? And then how do we think of it? How do we imagine that life? And there's a pressure. It's the pressure to do it because the 41st hexagram in the I Ching is called decrease. And it's the image of the mountain over the water. And what that is destruction of the mountain. So all of a sudden, the mountain's gone, and there's pressure to build new land, new future. And so that's really what it's about, is that what do we want? There are shadows to this. And the biggest shadow is to get stuck in your fantasy, is to dream and dream and dream and dream, period. So are you a dreamer? It's great to be a dreamer, but when does that dream take the next step? So it's really a very difficult place to live because there's fear. You know, there's fear because we don't know how to manifest this dream. We just know we want it. And so let's say the rest of the gene keys, the rest of the human design chart even, has methods, has skills, has truths, and understandings that we can climb into and create the life we want. But we have to start somewhere. So this is only the very start. But what if we can't get out of it? What if we are living in that shadow and we go, I don't know what to do next. I'm stuck because all I know is what I want. I don't really know how to get it. And so let's move forward and see where this can take us. So the next thing I'd like to look at is moving from desire into purpose, to actually start getting your feet on the ground and feeling how to move forward from your fantasy, how to take advantage of it. And so purpose is so prime in our lives. We need to take life somewhere. But where do we take it? Now, it's the 28th. The first one we talked about was the 41st gene key hexagram. Now, this one is the 28th. And this is all about purpose. The shadow of it is huge because it has to do with fear of death. That we all have fear of death, which is why we try to understand life. So we don't have to worry about death. And then there are so many distractions to do it honorably, and because it can be so taken advantage of. If we all have a fear of death, we can be so easily manipulated. And we have been. The pandemic showed an incredible fear of death. Oh my gosh. Just, everybody said, tell us, how do we stay alive? How do we protect ourselves? How do we protect our family? And I remember my family just very afraid for me because I'm in my 80s. Oh my God, Dad's gonna die. You have to protect him. What can we do? And so then you'll listen to just about anybody. The idea is not to listen to just about anybody, but to stay in your own truth, or to seek your own truth. But what about religions? Aren't they the same? Isn't religion the way to avoid death, or at least avoid the troubles of death? And let's kill others. Religions are really dangerous, but they also create dogma and create a sense of purpose that has to do with survival. Now, do we all want to live in survival? Do we all want our purpose to be shanghaied by our survival needs? And that's where I think the biggest crimes are, of people who use our fears against us in every way. What about the medical, pharmaceutical world? Take this, you won't die. And it's amazing how many doctors, if you're being diagnosed, will tell you how short a life you have to live unless you take this medication. So that fear of death will drive you right into being heavily medicated if you let it. But you don't know any better because they're the boss. They know, and they will keep you from dying. So we need to start getting our act together as to how to hold ourselves in totality, in wholeness, and believe in ourselves, and to overcome the fear of death. Now, how many coming of age programs are there in the world? Among Aboriginal tribes, it's always going out and facing death and coming back. And then you're a stronger, wiser person from that. And maybe we all need to do that in our lives in different ways, is to face the maker, face the opportunity to believe in ourselves better without being distorted in our purpose. So this is such a big deal, because on the good side, having purpose is how we grow, how we will evolve, and how we'll be happier in the future. So then what happens when we can face our death and feel whole. I've had situations in my life many times where I've faced potential of death. And I've always been surprised that I've been willing to stand up against it, including being attacked by muggers by armed muggers, not guns, and being willing to fight them off. That was coming of age. It really did come from that. And then also 8 years ago, I had a heart attack. And that creates a coming of age. It's very profound. And I noticed that actually I don't know what was in me, but I wasn't afraid of that it would kill me. And it didn't, as you can see. So I've always been, maybe that's why I can talk about this, because I'm willing to slay the beast that wants to deprive us of evolving properly. And that's one of the reasons I have Energy Stew, is to find the truth, find ways that we can learn about life and be happier, and then have greater purpose because of it. So moving forward, we can move to the 53rd hexagram. So we went from the 41st to the 28th to the 53rd. And the 53rd hexagram is of beginning new things. And it's the image of the gentle wind over the mountain. So it's growth. So we have a mountain again. Let's say our purpose stuck a mountain there and said, all right, let's see what we can do with it. And so here we have this mountain in front of us that is has a gentle wind. So there's growth. It's really it's the hexagram of gradual progress. And so what it means is that we actually have to take it easy, go slow, stay on purpose. Since we've come of age now, and we can move forward into beginning something carefully. The shadow of beginning is called immaturity. It's either moving too soon or moving too fast. That's why it's all about gradual progress. And I had a podcast not long ago with a man who started a company immaturely and went through some years of trying to keep it going in all kinds of ways and failed. And so it's really about, do you have all your ducks in order, or at least enough of your ducks in order to tackle something safely, or at least safely enough. And so we're moving forward into a time in life where everything is more complex. It's harder to get your ducks in order because life is getting crazy. So could be some ducks missing. There likely are. So what is complexity there for? It's really there for refinement. We need to move forward through complexity. And the way to do that is through synthesis. In other words, you take all these complex parts and synthesize them, I said it right, and be able to create simplicity. because synthesis of complexity creates refinement. And that's, to me, that's the whole purpose of how we're moving forward in life, is through refining. We are trying to live life smarter and hopefully simpler, but only by using complexity, by having all these more and more and more parts to find more synthesis and make more sense of what we want to create. So this immaturity can actually come from a couple of other hexagrams, actually. One is leadership, which is the pressure of leadership to maybe take on too much, act too fast, get your ego in the way. And so it's oh, and now I'm not remembering the other one. So it's leadership. Oh yes, it's ambition. So it's the 54th. Leadership is 31st gate, 31st gene key, and ambition is the 54th. And so ambition is to try to make more of ourselves, of course, and so the shadow of that also is to have too much greed and selfishness. And so we move on with all of these shadows to be, take hold of and know that they hold us back. The shadow of our imagination, of our living in fantasy, holding us to it, being stuck in it. Then our purpose being detoured by dark forces that want to create fear and darken our way. And yet we don't know it's dark because we're buying into propaganda. We're buying into false hope. So that's a great shadow that we want to be aware of. And then again, the shadow of beginning is, again, it's moving too fast. It's getting ahead of ourselves. And what is running it? Well, we keep coming back to the fear of death or the fear of destruction. And so we need to keep track of that. We need to learn to trust ourselves, trust in the universe, trust in serendipity and synchronicity. And the best way is an ancient Zen term called Wu Wei, W-U-W-E-I, which means just take care of the business in front of you and let serendipity and synchronicity treat you with blessings. And trust blessings. It's so important to live in hope. And hope can make you free if you know the shadows. So I'm glad I've been able to talk about this. I wondered if I could actually put it all together in a way without having to interview someone for it, because that's what I'm used to. And that's what I'm best at, I think, is finding the experts and interviewing them and letting them carry the show. So I just felt like I wanted to talk about this and help us understand not only what we're facing, but the pitfalls and the false hopes and the false talking, the false propaganda out there. And how do you find your way? And it takes gradual progress. It takes thinking, staying awake, and feeling aware of these dangers, being aware of the shadows, to pull you back into your wholeness, into your sense of self, and just listening to right and wrong within you. Don't give power away to people who might be false prophets. Very likely are. But how do we know? And sometimes we won't know until we take the next step. But we do our best to fantasize what we want, and then feel the energies, sense, become more intuitive. Allow yourself, allow your heart to show the way. Not your head so much as your heart, because we can be manipulated too easily. I have been many times in life. I'm kind of an innocent person wanting to trust. And many times I've trusted the wrong people. So I've come of age from that. And I think I can do a better job in the future. I don't know. Because I'm still willing to give people power to be knowledgeable and be smart and help me know better. And sometimes they are false prophets. So we all learn. We learn the hard way. And that's how we come of age. So hopefully this podcast will help you at least get a feeling of how to get more grounded, how to stay on the ground, how to listen to yourself better, and how to be willing to face the future. So thank you all so much for listening. If you're still here, I appreciate it a lot. And if you want to reach me, I'd be happy to communicate. I'm at Peter@HeartRiver, HEART river.org. And I'd love to hear from you. And hopefully you'll be listening to the show at prn.live or the archive at energystew.podbean.com. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being there.